Hi, you're listening to After Dinner Conversations, short stories for long discussions. What that means is we get short stories, we select those short stories, and then we discuss them specifically about the ethics and the morality of the choices the characters and the situations put us in. Why did you do this? What makes you do this? What makes us good people? What's the nature of truth, goodness, all of that sort of stuff. And hopefully we're all better, smarter people for it and learn a little bit about why we think the way we think. So thank you for listening. Okay, and welcome back once again to After Dinner Conversation. Although I should mention we actually have sort of an unofficial name change because we have created a second podcast. So technically now this podcast's name in all the search engines is changed to Philosophy, Ethics, Short Story Discussions. And our new podcast is Philosophy, Ethics, Short Story Audiobooks, both of which are published under the umbrella of After Dinner Conversation Publishing. Because the audio book one, which is now our companion podcast, is the audiobook readings of the short stories. And that'll come out weekly, not every other week, because I don't have to coordinate people, so I can just do it at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, getting out of the way, it starts like March 24th, 25th, something like that, of really soon. I've got like 10 episodes already recorded. Okay, so I totally forgot the intro because I'm out of practice. I am your co-host Kolby, here with Jeremy.
Hello.
Hey, Jeremy. And today we are leaving the ladies behind us, although Ashley's going to join us for the next one. Sarah is busy with work and life stuff. And we are going to be discussing The Wrong Side of History by N.M. Man, I really struggle with these names. Sedeno with the squiggly line over the N. Cedeño? I'm going to go with Cedeño. I'm in Spain and I don't know what the squiggly line means.
Cedeño,
yeah. And this story is in what magazine? It's in the October 2021 magazine. Yeah. So a little while ago. Certainly you can get it on Amazon, or you can subscribe to our website for $4.95 for a year, which everyone tells me is like way too cheap, but I'm sticking with it for as long as I can. All right, so let me do the quick summary for you, Jeremy, and if I forget anything, maybe you can help me out. All right, so the summary is there is this really old senator named Senator Arnold McCoy who's celebrating his 130th birthday, and you're like, wait a minute, all right, we already are like future tech. Why is this guy 130? Right. And it's because at some point in the past, there was a super volcano. I assume the one like underneath Yosemite or whatever somewhere went off. Right. Set off tsunamis, earthquakes, dust that covered the earth. And there was a huge like world collapse basically in population and everything. And and a lot of the countries went into just like anarchy and lawlessness. The United States instituted a program where they were going to pick some of the elected officials at the time to get special medical treatment to extend their lives so that there would be some political continuity between the old and the new. He was one of those people. You get the impression some of them died during the treatment, and that the treatment was so unethical and so inappropriate that they wouldn't even really do it anymore. But he was one of the ones who lived, and of 5, I think, that lived. And he is the last one of the 5. And so consequently, he has been in Congress for like 100 years or something like that. And he's considered a quote unquote national treasure. He is about to retire. And just before his retirement, he gets a random message from someone, from a group. Do you remember the name of the group? Do you, Jeremy? It's like Magna or Nanga or I don't really remember.
I don't.
Okay, no. Whatever.
I'm sure we can find it.
Some niche fanatical group. And they basically said, look, we found this old speech of yours that says that you are in support of abortion. And so clearly you're in support of us because we support eugenics. And anyone who supports abortion supports that like not all babies should live. Therefore, you must support eugenics, which is our ideology that that we should sort of like not let people with physical deformities or mental handicaps be born. And if you don't publicly support us, at the very least, you could financially support us with $10 million, and then we'll never tell anyone about your article. He can't do that even if he wanted to, because there's all these internal audits that go on. And so he hires a fixer, or brings in his fixer, I should say, to go and find out why this information hasn't been scrubbed from the records. The fixer finds out that it was a paper that he wrote when he was a student, before he was even in politics, at USC. USC got destroyed by a tsunami, but all of the files at USC were sent to other libraries for storage. They are now archiving them and making them available and indexing them. And in that process, someone found it and is now threatening to make it public. That's why it took 80 years for it to sort of surface.
Right.
And the first thing the fixer does is she goes back and digitally alters the original so that the original no longer says that. So at the very least, he could now argue like, oh, the person doctored it up. And the guy then tries, the politician and the fixer continue to try and solve this problem. The fixer goes to confront the blackmailer in the hopes of getting the hard copy or the electronic copy from them. She gets stabbed in the lung and her lung gets punctured. And the blackmailer is like, I'm going to do this. And so the blackmailer gets into, leaks it to all of the press. The press fact check it and realize that there's another copy that is different. So they won't publish it. So the guy breaks into the 130th birthday party and tries to expose him and eventually stabs the retiring senator. The retiring senator survives the stabbing. We fast forward 6 months and realize that everything turned out okay, that his legacy wasn't ruined by his support of abortion 90 years earlier. And he's kind of living out his remaining days. The person is up for trial, and the senator has the ability to influence the punishment and actually defers for a more lenient punishment. So it's like 20 or 30 years of probation, plus he has to go through mandatory classes to sort of help him get right in the head. And the only thing I think I didn't explain very well, that now that I'm playing through it, is like, why would 80 years ago being pro-abortion be a big deal? And that's because given that there was such an economic and population collapse, there's sort of a new movement where the issues du jour now is everyone is pro-life, because there's just a human shortage. And so even people that retire still work, and it would just be the equivalent of like heresy to say that like we don't need everyone. And also the eugenics people have sort of co-opted the history to make it seem like everyone that was pro-abortion was pro-eugenics. And the old senator keeps trying to tell people like that's not what it was, but that everyone else is looking at is the history books, and they're sort of recrafting history to fit their dynamic. And so not only do the eugenics people think that abortion people are pro-eugenics, but even like normal people now believe that abortion people were eugenics, because that's the way history has been now sort of retold in storybooks, history books. And of course, the old senator is like, that's not what it was. Nobody ever supported eugenics. But he's the only one who remembers, and the history books all say different, and popular culture says different. And that's it. All right, I feel like I went through that fast, but it's actually a very full story. It's like a beginning, middle, and an end. It's like there's an arc to it, even. I don't know. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got all the main points.
Very good. Thank you. So what did you think of it, first off?
Well, I really liked the story because of those things, because it's got that full arc, and in some ways the story really isn't about the philosophy underpinning it, but it's more about this process of him trying to hide the information.
Yeah. There's definitely some issues with the way he goes about that. Like the idea of sort of rewriting his own story digitally seems to be a common practice for him.
But I feel like that's a common practice for a lot of politicians.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so
true.
it isn't something new for this character. This, in a sense is based in history. So from that point of view, there's nothing new to this character of trying to manage how he's viewed in public.
Sure. He's been doing that his whole life.
Right.
As politicians probably do, right? And so what did you think then about, and this is one I'm sometimes I ask questions to sort of like spur a conversation. Sometimes I ask questions because I generally don't have a firm opinion. This is it. I don't have a firm opinion. I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this. He doesn't seem like he is a opinion leader, that he really is very malleable in his opinions. And consequently, his opinions now are not his opinions 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And so the thing I don't know is, to what degree do you hold someone accountable or responsible today for their opinions that they had 30 or 40 years ago? Especially when you know that their opinions might simply be changing with public opinion, because they don't really have a firm, it's not like he's got a firm concrete belief, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, personally, I feel like we should have some leeway to politicians for how their opinions change, and what policies they support. It isn't just what they're saying, it's what they're doing. And really what they're doing matters more than what they're saying.
Right.
So the policies that they support and the laws they vote for, that's really their record, and not what they're saying in speeches, or, not what they're saying. It's what they're doing that matters.
Okay, so let's say we go backward in time. So somebody is sort of like consistently votes pro child labor, right? They're pro child labor. And they say, I've seen the light. I get it. We shouldn't have kids working in factories. Are you willing to give them that benefit of the doubt, or do you wait until they vote in support of child labor laws before you're willing to give them that? See, that's the thing, right? Like he says, he's like, it's a different time. I feel differently now. But like, this is why I struggle with this. And it's like, well, of course you're going to say that, but are you going to vote that? Are you going to really do that? Like, and maybe that's why I'm much more comfortable using someone's record than their words.
Right. And, it might depend. There are, other circumstances around that. So, are they up for election, and have they not voted on anything since then? Yeah, maybe at that point, look at their record. Since that is what you have to go off of, because especially if they have a history of saying, well, I was wrong, and I'm not going to do that anymore, but they continue to do it.
Yeah. I mean, are there things that are abhorrent to you that you would be willing to forgive a politician for if they said, now I know better? Or are there things that are abhorrent to you that you would be like, look, this is one you had to have gotten right the first time?
Oh, I'm sure. I hadn't thought about in the context of this, so I don't know if I have an example for you. But yes, I would think there would be some things that would come along that, right, you're, you could probably take abortion or separation of church and state, or any of those.
Gay marriage. That's a more common one that's changed recently, right? Like now that gay marriage polls at like 70%, every politician, except for, the sort of fringer ones, are like, civil marriage is okay. I don't care. Just don't get married in a church. Like, I'm not sure I'm willing to forgive someone for that vote, for the vote they had 20 or 30 years ago. Now, maybe some things I would be, but I'm not sure I could. And here's why I wouldn't forgive someone for that vote. And again, I really don't have a firm opinion on this. I could probably think of counterexamples.
Certainly.
But the issue is not that you're anti-gay marriage. It's that you were anti-equality.
Yes.
And whether that's equality, for someone being gay, or equality for someone being a minority, or equality for whatever, right? For any sort of cultural, mental, physical differences, I fault you for the underlying fault, not for how it manifested itself.
Right.
If that makes sense. And that's why I feel like it's unforgivable.
I would agree with that.
Okay. I'm just trying to think like, so it's just tough, man. So do you just have to take it case by case?
I think you do have to take it case by case, and I think the story does a good job of presenting him as, in the particular case in the story, it's very clear that, he is not and has never been for eugenics. And it's a problem of history and attaching abortion rights to eugenics in the present that's causing this problem.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Or do you think you could argue that abortion is eugenics and it shouldn't be considered a separate issue? Or is that why do you think the author picked that particular topic, because you can look at it both ways?
Yeah, I think the author did something really clever here. And I was thinking about this as I was rereading it. Is for the first third or half of the story, you don't know what the issue is he's embarrassed of. Like, you don't know what's in the paper. Like, it's way later in the story that you find out what the issue is, which I think is good because it allows you to formulate your opinion on the framework without having to get your own bias on the issue, right? Because some people are always going to be pro-life and some people are always going to be pro-choice. And so as soon as you know what the issue is, you're going to view his ability to escape or not escape that cleaver. But if you don't know what the issue is, then you can view the ethical issue without that framework of a bias. And that's one of the things I think is the geniuses about this, is then you get to the end of the story or the back third and you find out what the issue is. And in some cases, I think it makes you flip your opinion, right? So maybe you're like, well, I would hold someone accountable for their past opinions. And then you find out what it is and you're like, oh, but I'm okay with abortion. But I was just going to condemn this guy. But now I can't because I agreed with what he thought before. And so it forces you to like reconcile those conflicting things. I don't know.
Right. And probably which side you come down on abortion, that might flavor your decision on whether or not
he should be able to get out from under this.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's super clever. Honestly, I wish the author had never told us what it was, because I think that would have even... But I like that they did it later, at least, because then you're stuck in that situation. Yeah, I don't know, man. There were a couple of really good things about this story that really got me thinking. One is, what are forgivable versus unforgivable past votes? I'll tell you one that for me, and I'm going to bet you and I, this is what the problem when you and I do our podcast with just the two of us.
Like we agree. On so many things.
There's a lot of overlap. I feel like the voting on the impeachment for... Hi, this is Kolby, and you are listening to After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussions. But you already knew that, didn't you? If you'd like to support what we do at After Dinner Conversation, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/After Dinner Conversation. That's right, for as little as $5 a month, you can support thoughtful conversations like the one you're listening to. And as an added incentive for being a Patreon supporter, you'll get early access to new short stories and ad-free podcasts, meaning you'll never have to listen to this blurb again. At higher levels of support, you'll be able to vote on which short stories become podcast discussions, and you'll even be able to submit questions for us to discuss during these podcasts. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being the kind of person that supports thoughtful discussion. I feel like the voting on the impeachment for Trump on the January 6th thing, like, I feel like, look, I get it. You might like or dislike Trump. There are reasonable people on both sides, I would assume. But when someone tells people to attack the seat of government, I can't ever forgive you. Yeah, I can't ever forgive you for that vote. Like, there's no going back for me on that vote, right? And I can't in my mind formulate a way to define what the distinction is between that and now I think food stamps are okay, right? I don't. You see what I'm saying? It's like I don't know what the the core essence of the differences between forgivable and unforgivable opinions, where you can change your, so like if somebody, if some politician who voted not to impeach or simply said that they were like, whatever, like, reasonable protesters or all the various things that have been said. And in 5 years, they were vying for my vote, and they go, you know what? We didn't know. I was wrong. I wish I could do it again. I would do it different. My response would be like, no, you had to do that one right the first time. Like, right. But I don't know. I don't know if you have any insight into this. I have none. Is really what I'm saying. Like, what is? I think we would. Like, what is that essence that makes something that you can pull it back, and what's the essence that makes it that like, no, I'll never forgive. Right. You for that.
It's something that ties to your core values.
Maybe that's it.
And so where I think it would make a difference. Somebody who's vehemently opposed to abortion in this particular case would still condemn the senator for his past beliefs.
Yeah. All right, let me whittle this down. I'm going to ask you a few issues, and you tell me, like, would I consider a candidate or a congressperson who changed their opinion? If someone's and this is like a year ago they voted on it, but in 3 or 4 years they've like, I've changed my mind. I've improved. They didn't believe in global warming.
Ooh, that definitely.
That's unforgivable. That you can't.
I think that's unforgivable.
You can't pull that one back.
I don't think the science is out on that one.
Okay, you can't pull that one back. What about? I'm only asking you a couple because I'm trying to figure out what the common thread is. What about? I don't know. Vaccinations. If they were like, vaccinations and masks and all that stuff.
I feel like there's still the science is not out on that one.
Not as much as global warming.
No, I don't think the science is out on those. Those are
okay.
all well-known
ones.
Right. Vaccinations save lives.
Okay.
Would you rather have an autistic baby? Not that vaccines cause autism, but would you rather have a potentially damaged child or a dead child? And the vaccines, even though there may be some side effects, save more lives. So I don't think the science is out on that.
But if you use that reasoning, you wouldn't forgive someone who voted against like protected bike lanes, because the science is out that protected bike lanes save bikers. Does that mean that
now you have to look at?
Yeah.
So that's what I was about to say. But there is a, what do they call it? It's a difference of scale. So vaccines might be more forgivable. I don't know. I still think you're stupid. But
sure. What about sure?
But if that's the only thing, okay, maybe.
And you've changed your mind on it. I might be willing to I might be willing to accept your change of opinion.
Right. If that's the only thing, the only issue.
Yeah.
The problem is that so many of these are tied together.
That's true. You don't really just change your mind about like a flat Earth and not change your mind about chemtrails.
Right.
Yeah. Like once you're in, you're in. That's a great point.
Yeah. So science denial. If you have a history of science denial.
So maybe that's the thing that we're getting at, right? Is that for you and I, maybe it's, but science denial doesn't take into account January 6th, right? That's not a science denial one. So there must be a more core thing that's the thread through all of those.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know. And that's the thing I struggled with when I was reading it, is I couldn't figure out what I was cool with and what I wasn't, and what that nugget was that I couldn't explain that was different.
Okay.
Because if somebody said to me, like, look, I was in favor of charter schools and now I'm not, or I believed in seatbelts and now I didn't, I was pro texting while driving and now I'm not, I'd be like, you know what? I think you were an idiot then, but I'm glad that I'm glad. I'm glad to have your vote now. Right.
Right.
But there's then other ones I just can't let go. All right. You're no help in this, man.
That's a good point. I know. We need somebody who's at least going to play devil's advocate.
We need someone smarter than us, man. That's for sure. We should have brought one of the girls in. We need somebody smarter than us. What about the fact that history is so sort of malleable to the current environment? That got me thinking about all the Civil War stuff.
Absolutely. It's interesting and how. I really did not think about that, but that is probably a good path to look into as well. How many monuments to Southern generals were erected after the Civil War.
Yeah. Like those 1950s monuments.
Right.
That had nothing to do. But I guess I wondered it not just about the Civil War, but about like a lot of stuff, right? Like the way that we sort of construct history to fit our modern story. Whether that's about the Civil War, or whether that's about Teddy Roosevelt, or whether that's about Ronald Reagan, or Christopher Columbus.
Any of these people who we, have made heroes in some historical sense because we were ignoring things that, in the 1980s, we didn't consider the crimes that Christopher Columbus did. So he was the hero who discovered America.
Yeah.
So, and now that we are looking at historical figures in their larger impact to indigenous cultures, suddenly they're no longer such good people. But at the time they were doing something good. They were doing something good for their nation, for themselves,
Yeah. I think it's the part that I found interesting about it is I agree with everything you just said, that it's interesting how history isn't as fixed as I thought when I was in school, because we're continually reevaluating and refining it in ways, one, for accuracy, but two, for the modern reader, right?
Yeah.
And what the modern questions are. And just like they're doing in this, right? Like they're looking at people that in this story that were pro-abortion, and they're seeing it through the modern light of eugenics, and everyone is, not just the people who want to see it that way.
Right.
And I don't know. I can see where this story, I think for the first time ever, made me realize that probably happens a lot more than I think. Right? The narrative of, and it might be true, like Ronald Reagan ended the Cold War. That might be true. That might simply be the narrative that's explained because it fits what we need him to be in today. It fits our modern questions, right? Like, how did the Cold War end? Ronald Reagan ended it. And it's like,
right.
I don't know. I don't know. It all got me thinking about it in ways I'd never thought about it before.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting idea. What other things do we think we are on the right side of history that in the future we could not be?
Right.
Potentially not be on the right side of.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. I think that the day will come when people will be like, I could never vote for someone who wasn't a vegetarian. Like, didn't they know better? Didn't they know what it was doing to the environment? Didn't they know that animals could feel? And I say this as a person who eats meat. Like, I could very easily see in 100 years someone being like, tear down that monument. That guy was a meat eater. Well, everyone ate meat, but everyone knew it was wrong. But everyone did it.
Right.
And you could make, right? And you could almost, and I hate to draw this comparison because somebody's going to be pissed off about it, but you could make that same argument about slavery in like 1790, 1780, where it's like everyone knew it was wrong, but everyone did it. And it's like, well, not everyone knew it was wrong, and so now, like, tear down that statue of Thomas Jefferson. I could see someone doing that with, and not that I think that slavery and eating meat is the same. I don't, but that kernel of like reviewing everything through a modern lens and a modern, I don't know.
Right. Where we discount what was accepted at the time.
Right. Right. And we see it as like evil as opposed to like, look, everyone thought business. Right. Everyone thought it was evil, but it was like the sort of acceptable evil at the moment. Right. It was like, we all wish we didn't smoke cigarettes, but we do. And it's the 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything about the story that really jumped out at you? Because I've got a few more, but I'm curious if there's things that you wanted to chat about as you read it.
No, not in particular.
Okay, no worries. Then I've got one more for you. What do you think about him? My biggest problem in the whole story, not a problem with the story, but my biggest ethical issue with the story was how easily and how cavalier he was with changing actual documents. That was pretty. I was just like, dude, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, right. You can't go back and like rewrite what's in your Kindle.
Right, and specifically to protect his image.
Yeah.
Where. Right. So again, the ethics of that.
That was my biggest problem in the whole story. Actually, that was my biggest black mark on him in the whole story was just like
right, and really not doing it because of and doing that simply from a point of his ego.
Right. His legacy.
His legacy. He is one of the core people who helped shepherd this culture, this country through a really rough time and wants to be remembered as this national treasure.
Yeah.
Even though much of what he was doing during that time was rewriting his own history to protect himself from modern commentary.
Modern retellings of that history.
Yeah.
He wasn't even rewriting it to protect the truth. He was rewriting it to protect the way people would view that truth.
Yeah. View that, right. And earlier when he was doing it, it was to protect his job and his ability to continue his power. But now it's really just protecting his ego because he's done with this career. So, and I'm not saying, well, yeah, I'm done with the career, so now all of this doesn't matter. I mean, I would want to protect my legacy too.
Yeah.
And not be seen as.
What do you think he should have done? Because I actually think he should have just been like, look, the problem isn't me. The problem is you. You guys are all idiots. You're misreading history. I was there. Judge me if you want, but I'm not going to lie. Like that's what what the moral douchebag in me wants to say, right?
Yes. No, and I think there's a path through using that, doing that as well, but it's a harder path. And at this point, he's just used to changing history, changing his own history, so that it's not a conflict. And you're right. The better moral path is to accept this and try to explain it away.
And just understand that you might have an asterisk next to your name in the history books.
Right.
So do you think that's what he should have done?
It's hard to say that. I mean, I understand why he wants to protect his legacy at this point. Based on, other things in the story, it seems like not only would it ruin his legacy, he might be put in prison. There's other things going on.
Yeah.
So there are potentially other negative outcomes to this by accepting that. So I understand what he did and why he did it. Yes, from a moral point of view, I would say, yes, he should have just accepted it and tried to explain it away. But yes, this wasn't. What he really does say at the end is, I never supported genocide. And while people historically supported abortion, these weren't the same thing in historical context.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. It seems like this all comes about because society is wrong in the way it's viewing its history. And he's he's sort of the victim of, I mean, you can be pro or against abortion, but nobody thinks people that are pro-abortion are pro-eugenics. It's absurd. But, Yeah.
Yeah. I think he says, even if historically people justified abortion for various reasons, that reasoning is now completely obsolete.
Right.
So there's really no connection between these two.
Yeah. Yeah. Thought it was a really good story. It's weird. It's like we get two kinds of stories. We get the story where it's like a flash question. Like you could really tell the whole story in 3 pages or 4 pages. because it's like a moment in time where you have to make a decision, and then you get something like this. It's like an arc, right?
Right. It's like an arc, and there's a lot of facets to the particular moral question.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to phrase it. Let me see if there were any other questions we missed. I don't think we did miss any. But let me just double check. Sorry, I've got to scroll down here. Okay, so what do we got? Politicians routinely change votes. Great lengths to hide evidence. No, I think that's probably it. That'll work. Yeah. I think we've got another. What's our next one we're doing? I don't even know. It's
rose-colored glasses.
That's right. It'll come out in 2 weeks. That's the one about the little kids who see
fairies.
Who see fairies, but then once you grow up, you can't see them unless you're wearing the glasses.
Right.
Yeah, Ashley definitely wanted to talk about that one with us, so she'll be back for that one as well. All right. Anything else you want to say, or are you all good? I don't ever want to cut you off.
I think I'm good.
All right. So thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Check out the magazine on afterdinnerconversation.com. Check out our companion podcast, Philosophy, Ethics, Short Story Audiobooks. That'll be out very shortly. It'll be on all the platforms. And that's it. Have a great day. I'll see you later, Jeremy.
See you. Bye.
Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. You know, the vast majority of people haven't liked and subscribed, which means maybe it shows up in your algorithm, maybe it doesn't. So don't leave that to chance. Just go ahead and hit that button, and we'd sure appreciate that. And that way we can keep doing what we're doing, and you're not left to the whims of some algorithm. Thanks.